Hello everyone, my name is JD.
And this is Logan.
And this is the WireTap presented to you by the Conservative Wire. And since the last time that we've recorded, there's been a video in between there. But since the last time we've recorded, there have been another 2 shootings that have happened over the span of 7 days, Sunday to Sunday. There was 3 shootings. And unfortunately, many fatalities that occurred between those 3 incidents. And we talked a little bit about the one of them, the Gilroy Garlic Festival, and that was last Sunday. And then this last Saturday that we just went through this weekend, we had a shooting in El Paso, and then the day after, actually I think it was the night. I mean, it was.
I think
it was like Sunday morning, Saturday night, Sunday morning, really early. I think I don't know the exact times, but there was a shooting in Dayton, Ohio, and this has. I had a feeling that whenever we had the shooting in California at the Gilroy Festival, that there was going to be incidents that followed, that there was going to be copycat incidences, because that's typically what kind of happens in these sort of things. And sure enough, it did. I didn't think, though, that it would all take place over the span of 7 days, and that there would be 3 of them.
Well, I mean, you've seen in the past, a lot of times these things do happen in spurts and clumped incidents. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, very much spread out. It might take place over spans of weeks.
Yeah.
And the 2 of them were within 12 hours of each other.
Yeah. But, pardon me. Obviously, you know, it's very tragic and heartbreaking for those who are involved, the families that are forever changed and altered through all these. But it's amazing how quickly, after something like this happens, people are able to turn everything into political strategy and into, planning for themselves, and planning how to benefit from something for their own campaign, for their own name, their image, their persona, everything in the public eye. And that's exactly what happened over the weekend after the dust started to settle and we started getting more details and we started to examine everything about these incidences. And I wanted to go through in this episode and just look at how much of a sewer everything has been from the left after this. Because by and large, the right has been beaten senseless over the last 4 days or so, since El Paso especially. Yeah. But the right has just been beaten senseless. Donald Trump has been beaten to a pulp. Dana Lash, the NRA, any Second Amendment supporting figure has had an absolute bludgeoning in the media for things that aren't even part of their control. And I'm going to be going through, I'm going to be showing you guys a lot of stuff, just a small sample. If you go on Twitter and you start looking far enough, you will find so much more than I list here. I just wanted to list some of what I had found and some of the big stuff from Democratic candidates and public figures. But just normal accounts that people like you and I use on Twitter, there's hundreds of thousands of these same kind of comments and tweets and graphics, everything. Just everything. But I want to start, pardon me, with a piece here from the Daily Mail. And Joe Biden, this is the headline, Joe Biden compares Donald Trump to the Ku Klux Klan, as Democratic frontrunner claims president's rhetoric proves he has abandoned the theory that we are one people. So, basically, Joe Biden claimed Monday, so yesterday from the time of recording, that Donald Trump's use of a dog whistle to subtly support racists makes him an heir to the Ku Klux Klan. And he said in an interview with CNN that Trump is trying to divide people, divide them and pit them against one another. And Joe Biden is just the latest, and it's not even the most outrageous in the sentiments that Democratic candidates have expressed. Beto O'Rourke, I think, was probably one of the worst in terms of their comments about Donald Trump and his behavior and everything with these shootings.
He's been the most notably ignorant of all the statements.
He's been the loudest and the most ignorant. Biden also said that nobody said anything. Pardon me. I have a lot of cough this morning. Nobody said anything like the things he's saying, Biden said. He said that the president's words serve to good God, Daily Mail, to legitimize the views of bigots and give them safe harbor to speak out and be more straightforward. They had a typo there in their own story. He said, we went through this before in the 1920s with the KKK, 50,000 people walking down Pennsylvania Avenue in pointed hats and robes because they in fact decided they didn't want any Catholics coming into the country. We went through it after the Civil War in terms of the KKK and white supremacy. This is about separating people into the good and bad in his mind. But Biden just, is one of many who have said these kind of things.
And honestly, they say these things. Does this not, in a way, give more publicity, or you could say more credibility to the KKK? You're building it up as something it most definitely is not. Their membership, we've discussed before. And we had actually discussed it, and we thought it was higher than what it actually is.
We thought that it was higher, and it's really not. It's only about 6,000, if that, active members in the United States. Generously, I think we gave them, okay, let's say that there's 10,000. Yeah, let's be generous and give them 10,000. But by all accounts and measures, it looks like they only have approximately 6,000. And that's even a little high based off of their own estimates. But you're giving the KKK is just the easy target for whenever you're wanting to talk about racism or white supremacy or anything like that. They're just the easy target because they're the most notable from history.
Yeah.
But the KKK, I can almost guarantee you that in the dark corner of the world where white supremacy lives, the KKK is a joke.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that people who are in this white supremacist circle look at the KKK as a joke and a watered down version of what it should be and what they view. I can almost guarantee you that. And I'm not placating or anything for the KKK in any way, but I'm saying that the KKK is just such the easy example to use, and they've received so much publicity that they are not the darkest of the dark, if that makes sense. Because you're truly dark, you're truly evil organizations like that would not survive being in the public eye for so long. They would not survive that. Because the people who go to those sort of things, the people who are truly that evil, are like roaches. Light, they scatter. they're not going to stay in a place to where they've been exposed.
Yeah.
They want to keep their anonymity for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And if they're ever discovered, they're gonna flee, and they're gonna try to regroup somewhere else. So I don't think the KKK is just the real easy example for everyone to go to for this. And it's this whole debate, this whole sphere of conversation about Trump, and I mean, are you really so dumb to expect us to believe that Donald Trump, I mean, they're just literally, they've come out, they're not saying that he is tolerant of white supremacy or white nationalism. They are straight coming out and saying that he is a white nationalist. He is a white supremacist.
He has been sounding the dog whistles
He's been
for the last
sounding
two and a half
whistles.
years.
Tell me, what are these dog whistles that you talk about? What are they?
We can't hear them because we're white. We're white and we're
yeah, and I mean that's literally what they say. We can't hear them, but people of color across the nation can hear them. Can you explicitly lay out what these dog whistles are? Because anything that you say, anything that you point to, is thinly veiled. Very thinly. You have to reach so far to say that that is a dog whistle for white supremacy. This is, even whenever the Democrats can't win, whenever they're calling somebody racist, they are still going to try their hardest. This is just a re-angling of their typical, you're a racist, their race card. That's all that this is. Because they tried during the campaign with just their typical, well, Donald Trump's a racist. Donald Trump's a racist. Well, that didn't work. So they're trying to re-angle it. They're trying to re-angle it as white supremacy. And it's scary how many people actually believe this. And that leads me into what I want to show you from Twitter. This is from user Matt Whitlock. I'll get into this first before we get into what Democrat candidates said. But the New York Times, if you didn't know, from yesterday, they released the second edition of their front page headline after Twitter freaked out. Their first headline, Trump urges unity versus hate. It's a pretty fair headline. It's a pretty straightforward.
That's what he did in his statements.
Yeah, he said, let's be united. Trump urges unity in the face of this hatred. We need to stand together on our principles. It's a pretty fair headline. It's pretty straightforward. Liberals freaked out on Twitter. They said that they were going to stop subscribing. You had AOC come out and, slam the New York Times. I imagine many other of the socialist figures in media and in Congress came out and did the exact same thing. Pretty sure Elizabeth Warren did as well, if I remember right. They came out with a second headline, assailing hate but not guns. New York Times, for all this time, has been somewhat of it's looked to as one of the highbrow publications and newspapers in America.
Yeah.
And it certainly has its left-leaning bias. And I will give them fair credit. There are times to where the New York Times surprises you.
Yeah.
And there's some times to where there's actually really good journalism in the New York Times. Some of it is absolute trash. I will say the New York Times is not nearly as bad as the Washington Post. The Washington Post is one of the most useless, refuse publications that I have ever seen in my life.
The Washington Post is maybe 100% trash. The New York Times is probably about 75 to 80%.
For every fair, honest article from the Washington Post, there is probably about 250 that are just absolute bias refuse from there. And any good journalistic article that I've ever seen from the Washington Post most of the time is an opinion piece. So it's not even traditional journalism. But that's what the New York Times had to do. And from this point forward, the New York Times, think of what kind of principle of journalism this violates, to where the New York Times alters their telling of the news based on public pressure. I thought that was a rule of journalism. I thought that was a goal of journalism, that you are supposed to tell the truth no matter what the consequence is. No matter from public pressure, no matter from those in power or governments. I thought that you were supposed to tell the truth no matter what. That was your job as journalists.
That's what the New York Times runs off of.
Yeah, I thought that was your fundamental duty as a journalist, was to inform the people of what is right and what is true.
If Donald Trump comes out and disagrees with a headline, or he attacks a headline, he's attacking the First Amendment. He's attacking our freedom of the press.
He's violating the Constitution. But then the New York Times caves to all of these liberals and progressives who complain about the headline. The New York Times, they completely disregarded what their principles are. They violated their own principles. You can say what you want about bias and about, whether or not they already violated their principles with being biased, but, bias is somewhat inevitable. But you can say what you want about that. But this, changing the headline, is totally different ballgame. It's clear and inarguable. They violated what should be one of their journalistic foundational principles and values as a publication and as a highbrow newspaper in the United States of America. But let's go on. Mediaite reported, I have the screenshot for this. CNN contributor, I'm going to butcher this name because I honestly don't know who he is, because I don't watch CNN. But I'm just going to go out on a limb and say
nobody else does. It's okay.
Wajahat Ali, I guess. I do apologize if I mispronounced the name.
Mr. Ali.
Yeah, Mr. Ali. CNN contributor deletes tweet referring to McConnell as Massacre Moscow Mitch. That was a hashtag that was trending the other night. Massacre Moscow Mitch. Now, I do believe, to be fair, that this was supposed to be a name. Massacre Moscow Mitch. It was supposed to be a name. It was supposed to be referring to Mitch McConnell. When I first saw that, I thought it was a declarative. That it was a sentence, fragment and a hashtag. But it was saying Massacre Moscow Mitch. Because I've heard Moscow Mitch, is a nickname that liberals have given Mitch McConnell.
Yes.
Moscow Mitch. I thought it was saying Massacre Moscow Mitch. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing? But as it turns out, it was, to be fair, I think it started off as an addition to that name. Massacre Moscow Mitch. Referring to Mitch McConnell's...
He's the reason there are massacres?
Yes, these massacres, because he's bought and paid for by the NRA, and he won't allow gun control bills to be brought to the floor of the Senate, and all that stuff. That's what it's supposed to be. As time goes on, though, it was just as ubiquitous to other people as it was to me, because some of the tweets, I didn't pull any, but some of the tweets you can go look for yourself, kind of cross that line as well, Yeah. Because they obviously have the same thought that I did, that it was saying Massacre Moscow Mitch. And there were a lot of tweets that crossed that line. There were some of them that were using it in the way that I believe it was supposed to be originally. It was intended to be used as a name for Mitch McConnell.
Well, Monday night there were protesters that gathered outside of Mitch McConnell's house, and
yes,
they began their such good rhymes in their chants.
Yeah, I mean, they were chanting, they were making a lot of noise, and apparently one of them said something about stabbing him in the heart.
Yeah.
Which, these people...
That clip's
these people,
circulating.
these people, while they're calling for, gun control legislation to prevent murders of people...
They're staying consistent. They don't want to shoot them.
Yeah, I mean, they don't want to shoot them. They want to stab them. But, while they're trying to save people and make sure everyone has the right to live and whatever, they want to take the right of life from Mitch McConnell. So let's get into some of the candidates here before we run out of time. Cory Booker tweeted a couple days ago. This was on, I guess, Sunday. One of the lessons in my faith is that you reap what you sow. When Donald Trump uses words like infestation, invasion, and asshole countries, when he refuses to condemn neo-Nazis and white supremacists, Trump is giving license to this kind of violence. He's responsible. If you would have said that about Obama, for Aurora, or for Sandy Hook, or...
There were 24 mass shootings during Obama's administration.
Yeah, there were 24, but like Ferguson or Baltimore, which, ironically enough has come back up in the news.
Yeah.
But, these places where these riots and everything took place, if you would have placed the blame for that on Obama, which I think your racial incidents in Ferguson and Baltimore, don't get me wrong, I think are to blame partially on Obama. I think Obama does play a role in what happened there and the destruction and the racial division that occurred from those cities that had that kind of stuff. He had such a great chance.
Been a uniter, and he failed to do that. He divided the country further in his statements.
Yeah, I think it's completely fair in those two incidents to place blame on him for that. But for the shooters, for people who just go around and commit mass murders, I don't think it's fair to place the blame on him. I don't think it's fair to place the blame on Elizabeth Warren for the Dayton shooter, who was apparently a supporter of her. I don't blame her. I despise Elizabeth Warren and everything that she stands for. I despise pretty well all the Democrats who are running for for the candidacy and the presidency and who are in Congress. I pretty well despise all of them. But I know that they aren't openly advocating violence. I mean, maybe besides Maxine Waters, but I know that they're not just openly advocating assaulting people and shooting them and doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I didn't blame Bernie Sanders for the congressional baseball game shooting.
Yeah, I don't blame any of them for that, so it's not fair to place the blame on Donald Trump. But let's get through some of these from Miss Elizabeth Warren. Donald Trump is enabling white supremacy, and Republicans are enabling him. And when Congress and the American people have tried to fight the gun violence epidemic, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has put the NRA first. If we want action, we need to take back the Senate and end the filibuster. She says in another tweet, we need a president willing to take executive action herself. I'll do everything I can, and I'll lead the fight for gun legislation from the White House.
Oh, wow. She got racism, gun control, sexism, everything in that tweet.
Yeah. And newsflash, Miss Lizzie Warren, legislation does not come from the White House. In fact, that's one of the most fundamental, important points of separation of powers and three branches of government that you should have learned about in middle school civics.
I'm pretty sure that they probably bolded that section
It was one of the most important distinctions, that the executor of the law is also not the legislator of the law.
Hence the names.
In fact, that was the first and most important distinction before they decided to add a judiciary.
Yeah.
Originally, you just had executor and legislator. Those were always separate. Those have never been together, unlike what you think. Now, before we get out of here, I'm not going to be able to get to all that I wanted to, unfortunately, that I wanted to, which really sucks, but I wanted to get to a graphic from BBC. We talked about this before. Wanted to get to a graphic BBC put out, and it says, how fast can weapons fire? And it has 5 different weapons and their approximate what BBC says is their approximate firing rates of these selected weapons. So we have a revolver, Ruger LCR. This is a 6-shot revolver. And they say it can fire 20 rounds per minute.
If I'm a professional.
I'm not going to say that that's impossible, but you're going to have to reload at least 4 times.
Yeah.
And unless you have the special, device to be able to, that is already preloaded with 6 rounds,
Yeah.
to just pull twist, and
Yeah.
you're ready to reload. Okay, it's possible.
That's
But
possible.
you got to be cranking that trigger pretty freaking fast to pop off your 6 rounds reload. I mean, I'm sure professionals can do it. Professional shooters and everything can do it. But I'm not going to say that it's likely. Semi-automatic pistol, Colt Model 70, up to 50 per minute. This one I feel is a little
This
more
is
likely.
the most plausible one out of all the ones that they have. I think.
Maybe. I'm actually not sure what the firing rates of any of the others are technically, but this one seems a little more plausible because you can slide out the magazine pretty easily, stick it back in.
How many rounds the magazine has?
Yeah. I mean, it might not be totally impossible. But let's skip down here to the fully automatic rifle. They have the M16, up to 950 rounds per minute. But right before that, and what they want your eye to catch, is they label this the modified semi-automatic assault weapon, the AR-15.
The boogeyman of all guns.
The boogeyman of all firearms.
Yeah.
It is practically a nuclear weapon. It's so dangerous.
If it's put in the right hands, it actually is. If it's put in the right hands.
Up to 1,200 rounds per minute. Now, don't ask me how an AR-15 can fire faster than a fully automatic M16 rifle. Don't ask me how that's even
It's
possible.
literally one of the biggest features between semi
250
and fully
rounds.
automatic.
But this has all just been hysteria. This has all just been absolute insanity. And I wish that we could talk about it a little more, but I don't want to get too long here.
And lies
So,
in the media with that headline.
If you want to see more, we're probably going to be talking about this for at least another week. So make sure you follow us on Twitter if you want to see more of our content and our comments about it in between. You can follow us on Twitter at the CWire, capital T-C and W. Make sure you like, subscribe, favorite. You can share this with your friends. Do the whole thing. Thank you all so much for supporting us, for watching our episodes, helping us grow. We really appreciate all that you guys do for us and all the support that you have. Again, follow us on Twitter. You can contact us there. And we will see you all in the next episode. God bless.